Word on the cloud. Okay, Janet, you with us? I think Janet's with us.
I am with you. Sorry. I'm having technical difficulty myself.
All good. Okay. Okay. Welcome to the February 2023 meeting of the Norfolk Board of Education at 6:02. Myself, call the meeting to order. The first thing on our agenda is public comments. We have a couple members of the public here. Welcome. Norfolk Board of Ed always welcomes public comments. I have a statement that I like to read that I have nicely printed out and then lost, but it says something like, please limit your comments to 5 minutes, and please know that it is our policy to not respond directly to comments, but instead to get back to people after the fact. And this what allows us to keep our business meeting moving forward and allows us to consider comments. So with that said, would you like to make a comment?
No, I do.
Would you state your name for the
Peter Crippen. It's actually to what you just said, Eddie. 5 months ago, I stood up for a public comment and asked what the 5-year plan was for the school with the declining enrollment. I've never heard anything. Which brings me to the next step, when people who are on the board have said, you know, what you really should do is you should come to the meetings. And I start asking people, why am I coming to a meeting? Just to hear everything that's going on? You have to, because you can't go to the minutes to find anything out. So, and if you make a public comment, nobody gets back to you, which gives the impression that the Board of Education is a closed system. You can say whatever you want. No one's going to say anything back to you, which I don't think is a really great thing to put out to the public. Because that's what I'm getting. I know other people have made comments and have their answers been answered? No. I know mine has never been answered. And I know that it's some people on the board, when they ran, that's one thing they said. We need to come out with a plan of what's going to happen with this school with the declining enrollment. And so I stood up, I said, hey, where's that plan? How can we see that plan? Never got anything. So I come to these meetings and I sit and I occasionally talk, and I'm asking myself, why am I doing this? The most information I've ever received was last week or 2 months ago when you gave the report on the test scores. And I think I got more information from you afterwards, and I thought that was useful, but I'm not getting. It just seems like it's the Board of Ed is impenetrable from my standpoint. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Peter. Okay. All right. For any further public comment, we're going to move to the approval of the minutes of the special meeting of January 3rd. Did everyone get to read through their minutes in the packet?
Motion approved.
Okay. A motion made and seconded. All those in favor? Aye.
Abstain.
Abstain.
Abstain as well.
All right, well, with 3 members voting, I still think it will pass. Thank you. Okay, correspondence. I wanted to mention that I received a copy of the agenda for the upcoming Board of Finance meeting, and the Board of Ed is on the agenda. It says the discussion of the Board of Hotel and the CGS, that was Connecticut General Statute 10158A, which is the statute that deals with cooperative agreements between towns. I think it's important that members of the Board of Ed attend the meeting if possible to understand what's happening there and what their thoughts are. As many of you know, if you went through the consolidation process 8 years ago, whatever it was, cooperative agreements is one of the ways that school districts can merge. And it is about boards of ed making a decision between each other to go forward. It's an option that is at least outside of like the referendum and the vote piece.
When's the meeting?
It is on February 14th at 7:30. I think it's important to know that that statute specifically talks about boards of eds having that power to make a cooperative agreement, and we should know that that is where the power lies, that it doesn't lie with the board of finance or the board of study. Okay. So other course. I think that's it. So then moving on to the superintendent's report. We received bills to review. Your questions there?
No questions? So our breakfast program has been implemented beginning the month of January. It's going well. We haven't had any hiccups. And the transition from free lunch for everybody to back to the paid system for kids going free, which has not seemed to have been problematic at all either, which is a good thing. We have, as you know, had a resignation from our intermediate teacher who took an administrative position in her prior district. She sent a lovely note, and I'll share this with the board. Dear Mary Beth and Lauren, as you know, it's been a dream of mine to become an administrator. I was recently presented with an opportunity to join the administrative team at my previous school. I have accepted the position. This letter serves as my resignation as the intermediate teacher and the multi-age teaching and learning specialist. I appreciate the kindness I have received during the time I have spent at Bochel. I anticipate starting my new position in early January. We have hired a new teacher, Melissa Santa Esteban, who is a Norfolk native and comes out of Hartford. And she started earlier this month, or last month, rather, it's already February, and things seem to be going smoothly there. And very exciting that we have finally filled the position of our literacy resource teacher position. So Amy Hotbecker will join us in March. We've had to give a 30-day notice to her current district, which is District 15. But she comes to us with a Master's of Science in Reading Language Arts. She's certified as a Reading Language Arts consultant. She's had 30 years of experience covering kindergarten through grade 12. So we are really excited to have that spot filled. We've been recruiting and interviewing me, Lauren, and the team since last spring. So we really were looking for the right person, and the team believes that we have found that person. So that's all good news. I'm going to defer to the committee reports to talk more about budget, but that's my big conversation for tonight with you.
Great, thank you very much. Does anyone have any questions about those hires or any of the information under this? Sure. Okay, thank you. The principal's report.
That's being circulated right now. So I first wanted to give a shout out to the PTO. They sponsored the STEAM Museum Cultural Arts event we had at the beginning of January with Colebrook School. I also wanted to thank Mrs. Dubecki. Each month she's offering a monthly reading challenge, so to speak. And we had many students participate in this month's challenge. And to echo what Mary Beth said, welcome to Melissa Santa Esteban. We are excited to have her here, and she and I have been working closely as I transition the intermediate class back into her hands. Some upcoming events. As you know, last year we started our One Book, One School initiative based on some feedback we received from our families. We wanted to improve in the area, improve our communication in the area of letting families know that we accept and include students of regardless of their background, religion, race, sexual orientation. And so we started this One Book, One School initiative. Erin Dubecki is finding us fantastic books that go with different themes that we're highlighting. And this month is Black History Month. So we are reading as a school a picture book titled The Case for Loving. And this goes home. I just thought I'd pass that around so you'd have an opportunity to see that. Once the classroom teacher reads the book to students, the students kind of have homework to read that book with their parents. There's a QR code that brings them to a video that they can watch. Sometimes the author read the book aloud or someone else. And then we send home some questions for discussion before, during, and after. Last year, when we initiated this plan, so to speak, it really had a positive effect on our parent feedback survey, and we noticed a dramatic increase in people's perceptions around how we value each and every one of our students and families. So we wanted to continue doing this, felt like it was value added, and I wanted to share that with you. We aren't doing it every month. We're doing it, you know, periodically throughout the year. And again, we're trying to connect it with particular important themes. I wanted to invite everyone to the winter concert on Monday, the 13th. The whole school will participate in that concert, as will the band and special chorus. So that will be a fun evening to get together and celebrate the progress that Miss Crush has made with our students.
And I want to thank Mrs. Crush for doing that, because I know that having a whole school participation in those concerts has been something that is a response to parent feedback.
Yeah, yes, so that's exciting. And just to let all of you know, we keep monitoring our students' growth and progress, and we do that through 3-time yearly benchmark and universal screenings. After those assessments that happen both at a school-wide level and a classroom level and even a diagnostic level with our students, we review how our students who are currently receiving extra help in either reading or math, we review their progress at meetings throughout the year. So the first review meeting, that's what that's called. It's happening next week. We have an early dismissal for professional learning next Friday and no school on the 20th for President's Day. And below you'll see our enrollment, which has, varied a little bit since January. But we have currently 65 students enrolled. Any questions for me? Okay, thank you.
Okay, moving on to standing committee reports. Well, I believe the first one was here that met with the finance committee. So let's talk about it.
So the finance committee met the other week, although the budget has changed something since then. There is a fairly large increase for next year's budget to do the number of special education students and their needs. And there's the usual sort of standard increase because of increased prices for services and contracts and salaries and whatnot. There were some significant reductions because of the change in staff and because we're paying less for health benefits, Social Security, and Medicare. We just found out that we were able to lock in a much better price for heating oil. So that number is actually less than what is on the budget that you received in your packets. So it'll be about on page
9,200.
it's on page 7 of the budget. That number, the decrease will be. Right? Okay, so
19,200.
19,000 less. So that actually brings, so the budget that you got in your packets reflected an overall increase from the current year's budget of 1.68%. That brings us down to just shy of 1%, 0.9% increase. Just for the cost of the fuel alone. And that was because we're purchasing the fuel as a block with other schools. There was some back and forth about what our needs were for special ed teachers. We initially talked about reducing 2 paras and adding 1 special ed teacher, but the special ed staff requested that we stick with 2 one-on-one paras. So the increase wasn't as much as had been discussed in the earlier iteration of the budget. The amount that we'd added to the budget last year for the right for the consultant to develop the curriculum to meet the right to read mandate, which was 28,800. That program didn't happen the way we had talked about with the consultant, but we had another person take care of it for essentially accomplish the same goal but for less. So that's somewhat of a savings. Anyway, are there any questions? And then
Value added with pre-K. That's a big.
right. So one of the other increases is going from 3 days a week of pre-K to 5 days a week, which will help our students significantly. It'll make for greater continuity for them in their learning and the group that they're with. There'll be less back and forth with the transportation to and from bridges.
Just builds, and it builds
So,
stronger
yeah.
students and gets them more acclimated to
It's-
school.
It's better for parents. It gives them, it reduces the burden on them to find daycare elsewhere. So it's good all the way around.
That's a response to kids needing some more focused academic time in order to be ready for kindergarten. And considering that we have our early learning, or our early primary group that's together, it's also a nice exposure for that teacher, so additional things.
So then we want to talk about is that?
Yeah,
Here.
so
or
this
is
is
that-
like,
or
yeah,
is that five, or is that new?
I don't know, let's talk about it here.
Okay.
So,
So to sort of meld together several sections of the agenda, the Votel Advisory Group, so 2 members of the Board of Finance, 2 members of the public, and 2 members of the Board of Education met to discuss, and we met with the first selectman to discuss kind of where things stand going into the budget cycle, and what our long-term goals and plans are to address the numerous issues that have been brought up in terms of meeting the assessment goals, but also the student population. And one suggestion that has come from a few people in town, not least of whom myself, but has been to focus instruction somewhat more, as much as we can, on STEM and arts, or STEAM. So it is yet to be determined. We're talking to different people with Ed Advance and people in the community, but sort of the ideal scenario right now would be an after-school program separate from the school day that would be run by possibly by a nonprofit or separate entity, which would bring in private funding from foundations and things like that. But using the school to house this after-school program, which could bring in students from other nearby schools, from Colebrook, from North Canaan, et cetera, to sort of increase the size and the diversity of the cohort, to bring a focused learning on STEM subjects, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, and art. When we presented that notion, just the and you know, it's a very nascent sort of plan. When we presented that notion to the first selectman, he was very receptive to the idea, because all the other suggestions that have come up to deal with the population issue have not met with much positive reception. The first selectman said, okay, well, present to the Board of Finance the proposed budget that you have now to keep running the school as is, but also come up with a rough idea of what it would cost to develop an after-school program, some of which could be integrated into the school day so that whoever runs that program could work with the teachers to integrate some of that same STEM education into the curriculum. So if we can come up with just a ballpark number of a certain number of staff, what that would cost to staff it, whatever it might cost for transportation, whether that transportation involves, you know, bringing students in from other schools, all of that is to be determined, but just come up with some idea of roughly what that budget might look like to present to the Board of Finance and say, the only thing within our power to do to make the school a school that people really are enthusiastic about going to over any other school in the region, would be to add a unique program that prepares our students for the world that they're going to live in high school and beyond. Here's one option over and above the budget that we're presenting. This is roughly what it would cost if that were worked into the town budget. Here's what it would look like. There are people, though, who have expressed support within the community. Community foundations, family foundations have expressed their support. So that's what we would like to propose, and we would like to ask if we can just get kind of a rough idea from the administration. We'll also be talking with Ed Advance if they know of any, if they have an idea of what sort of costs we might be looking at.
The thing that's really exciting about this idea is that, we're so often tasked with, don't raise the budget. We need a 0% increase. Like, so I love this because it's a response to what can we do to build the school in a way that makes it unique and special and a destination, a way to perhaps mitigate, some, or I don't know how much we can change, but hopefully to attract people, perhaps mitigate, retain the kids who go to private school, maybe, advertise our school to nearby areas who might come for this program and then spend a bit more time here. It allows us to use the school, with the big resource that we have here, our big, beautiful school of open space and accessibility, to be able to use that and to sell our community and to sell our future. So, distinguishing Votel for something that is unique and academic and focused on the future this way, I think is great. And really, can be a path forward that instead of, a path backwards towards, closing things down or shutting things up. So, I think it's a really great idea and would love to kind of keep pulling together the people who I think are going to be, who could be really helpful in just defining what that program can look like and how it could be integrated into the school day, how we can make use of the space after the school day, how we can encourage people to participate in it as fully as completely as they can, to make sure we can populate the program and, make a beautiful thing. And if we build it, maybe it'll come.
And we realize that there are all sorts of logistical hurdles to overcome. After school athletics, transportation, all kinds of things. But we want to look at, what would it cost to make this work? How it would work with the curriculum that we have, and it's not something that we can, we can't mandate that students stay an extra 2 to 3 hours after school, but we can offer it, and we can offer it to students from around, within transportation distance, reasonable transportation distance. And I think, yeah, it's about the only thing that I can think of that we can do with the resources that we have and the resources that we could.
That the Board of
realize.
Ed
Yeah,
specifically
yeah.
can control,
Right.
since there's so much about the, population of the town or whatever that we can't control.
And a lot of people in town have mentioned, that sure, there are all sorts of issues about why we have declining population, and just about every small town in Connecticut is going, throughout the country. They're going through the same things, but getting people to move to our town or stay in our town, getting our children to want to continue to live in our town after they go on and become adults. All of those things, it usually winds up coming back to the school and how good the school is. So we have a great school. We want to make it focused on something additional that will make it an exceptional school.
So Jay and Janet and Donna, are you okay with the idea of trying to build some second version of a budget that includes that concept?
Yeah, what sort of cost is that going to be for our budget then?
Well, so the first selectman asked us to present the budget as is, right, for the program as is. I think that it's kind of and here's an add-on option. This is what it would look like if the town were paying for it, just to give people an idea, so something tangible to, although sort of a very rough draft, but some idea of what it would cost to develop a program like that. As I said, though, there is private funding, foundations and things like that, but for the Board of Finance numbers that come from, pledges, as it were, are worth the paper they're printed on until they're in the bank. So just to give an idea of what it would look like, and then if we can come back and say, here's the money, we could go forward next year with a program, and it wouldn't necessarily, if it completely didn't involve the town budget, then
Right, so we're building a budget as if
right,
the town were to pay for the entire thing.
Right.
But the goal is to find grant funds and
Right,
donors and nonprofits.
right,
For all our costs.
Right.
Lower the cost for school.
Right.
Yeah, I think absolutely. That's it.
yeah, and I think that is an important piece to make it so that it doesn't cost, just so that all students can come. And yeah, and it's completely paid for. It's not, it's just because we are a public school, we're offering this as free.
Right, okay, yeah, absolutely. I think there'll probably be like a nutritional component, like
Sure, yeah,
some food.
Yeah.
If students are staying long.
Yeah. If we're making them be here, we should be
Yeah.
charging them food too. Yeah.
Cool. All right.
All right, so that's a pretty big task, but, you know, well, I think we work
We'll see
together
what
and
we can
figure what we
get,
can come up with.
and again, to try to contact some of those entities that's what they do, build programs and offer this as a site in which to implement it.
Yeah, so I mean, we will work with you and we're, as I said, we're talking to various people. It can be just kind of, you know, an appendix or an addendum to the budget. Here's the budget, but here's the budget plus one. And I think that if we just have round numbers for, you know, X number of staff to run it, X amount for potential transportation, X amount for insurance and ancillary costs, X amount for materials and supplies, just very rough numbers, just to give an idea. Is this I mean, my guess is it could be anywhere from $150,000 to $250,000. Maybe it's 500,000. If we just have just a rough within a couple 100,000.
Well,
I-
because there's so many unknowns,
No,
it
sure,
would
sure,
be like
Sure, sure.
very, like,
And that's fine.
guesstimate.
That's
Yeah.
fine. That's
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 without the
fine.
program being defined, it'd be hard to
Right.
know and with any precision. But I think just going through the process of trying to figure out what pieces are involved is in itself a really useful exercise, because it will, you know, at least start to the program of like what are the numbers?
Yeah, and maybe maybe what they're talking about in the agreements with other boards, maybe that is a collaboration between the two boards. Who knows? So much of this is TBD, but just let's start, because and we need to get our feet wet. We need to really engage in doing it, or it will never happen, and we'll wind up with.
Well, and one of the big questions would be, do we start looking at a cost that would be just Norfolk? Because it'll be very different if
Sure.
there's the difference between Norfolk with the thought that down the road we would expand it and invite others once we got it, you know, up and running and knew what it was we were offering to other
Sure.
people, as opposed to a cost that would involve multiple other districts if we were picking up the tab to bring people in and feed them and.
Or if it's sort of compartmentalized, because when we start, if we just had Norfolk students, each one of those classes or whatever after school would be very small. So if this rough draft of a budget could be sort of compartmentalized, okay, so if it's just Norfolk, here's the transportation, here's the insurance, here's the staffing, here's the whatever, those costs. If we add on to that.
And you would want this ballpark figure for the Board of Finance meeting in March, April,
Right.
because I don't know as we can fill that order. We will do our darndest, but
Again,
there's just an awful lot to, you know, try to pull into, even get a very rough guesstimate. Only because they're.
well, or even so long as we know kind of what all the components are. I mean, I'm probably not thinking of, I mean, I've mentioned some of the components, staffing, insurance, transportation.
So no one had ever mentioned before, like nutritional needs, like that was a
Yeah,
new
feed them
number I
dinner.
didn't think of. I mean, if it's gonna be that long, I guess, yeah. Or, you know, if it were a certain length, it would require nutrition.
How many days a week
Or
are we
how
thinking?
the age of the kids is. There's a lot of details to work out.
Because, you know, again, if it were like going to involve other towns, so, you know, you couldn't start right at quarter of
Yeah.
4 for our kids. So we would need daycare or some supervision for our kids between after school and when the program starts, you know,
So like, for instance, that would be a good thing that you would learn from the after school program, the PTO one, because we tried for a long time to have Colbrook join us. And we were successful a few times, but that half an hour difference and the travel distance is something to overcome, because it's difficult. The kids from the parents from Colbrook had to pick up their kids, they had to hustle around, and the folks here had to fill the space, you know. But again, you know, just because that history is, it just all adds kind of depth and nuance. It doesn't like close doors or change them.
Yeah, I think despite all the logistical hurdles, like just thinking about it is overwhelming, but I think the spirit of what you're saying, like, let's try it, let's do something.
Yeah, let's build something instead of tear something down.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Well, so with that, we want to move on from our finance. I do.
I'm just wondering,
Sorry.
do you want, any kind of action on the board to, at some point, it has to go from the superintendent's proposed budget to the board adopted budget that's going to go to the Board of Finance. So if there are no questions, no additions, no whatever to this budget, is this a budget that the board wants to adopt as the budget that would be proposed as the one to run the hotel school next year? If business is as usual.
So have you all read?
Yeah.
Through,
So the adjustment being only to the gas limit. So we talked about the budget last month. So if we make adjustments to that, what's 141, I think it was? Page 7,
Oil,
the oil line, sorry, not gas. Oil.
yes, it's,
141, from 21,000 increase, it would be instead, what was it, like $2,000 or something like that, 1,800. And then the overall number being 0.9% increase, which I think is kind of spectacular.
yeah, and that's, I mean, I think given the increase in special ed and the always increasing cost of services and contracts and stuff, that's perfectly reasonable.
So does someone want to make the
special
motion?
education increase alone, just special ed costs, which, you know, are way beyond our control and are not, it's not a line we can cut, the services we could cut. The increase is $74,000 and change. So the amount of cuts to mitigate that and get us down to where we are now, it was a pretty heroic effort. And we always balance where we can make cuts and reductions without impacting the value of the education we're giving our kids. And I think, you know, we have this committee and this administration has done that. And in terms of the value added, that, you know, increase also includes the expansion of pre-K, which has tremendous value added for the community and for the programming that we can offer to many of our kids, and impact some of the increases in special ed by having those programming options.
Excellent. So do we need a motion then to present this budget or to move forward with this budget, right?
So pending the change of the line item on the heating oil on 141 on page 7, which brings the overall increase to 0.9. I would move that we accept the draft and approve it as our budget.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Yeah.
Aye. Opposed? None? Then moving on. Thank you. Okay, let's move on to our policy committee.
Sure.
Jay.
Two policies for tonight. The first one is a second read. So that is the IEP, is the individualized education program.
I think we already have it, John.
Yes, I think we can have one. Can I have it, too?
Yes.
I think I have one next door.
So I propose that we take a look at this briefly and we vote. What I will say is that our attorney looked at it and said that this is not only fine, it's a very good policy. It is pretty hefty, pretty thick. but I have no other recommended pages on my end. Does anybody else have any recommended changes? Does anybody want a few minutes to look over it?
Is this the second one? Yeah.
Yes.
What's the first one?
First read was December, January.
Several months ago.
Okay.
Yeah. It's been tabled, I think, for 3 meetings.
I think so, yeah. I've been sick for the last 2, so.
I know.
Where did you come up with the policy from?
Well, we started with the recommended policy from Kate based on the new legislation. And I did send it to Quentin up at Shared Services. He went through and said, absolutely, every change that they're recommending. Much of this was in our old policy, but the updates do reflect the new legislation and best practice. And Quentin said he gives it absolutely his stamp of approval that he would recommend that we implement this policy as well.
Any other feedback on that?
No, I read through it again, John. It looked pretty good. Jay, sorry.
Great. Yeah, I think,
All right, well, so then we need a motion if this is our second read, so I can receive a motion to accept this.
I'll make a motion to accept it.
Second.
Okay, motion made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None, so the motion carries. Okay, did you got a second? Melissa?
there's the second one, and I want to introduce for first read. And John, I'm gonna turn this one over to you since you kind of did the primary read of it.
So this is an update to the mission goals and objectives portion of our policy. It briefly defines goal objectives and performance objectives. And then they're basically all the sort of tasks that we set ourselves to accomplish with each of our students on the second page. Well, from the bottom of the first page to go down the second page, it's all the things about learning about civics, about the support services that we provide, enabling students to learn about art and develop as healthy individuals and get experience with personal skills and interpersonal skills. The one thing that is added to this list, which is new, which would be the change, is item 17, which is to integrate the principles and practices of social emotional learning into the district's required professional development program for students to get general protection. That's the one change.
Otherwise, it's exactly the same as the policy that we currently have in place.
But broadly speaking, it just covers all the ways in which we affect and improve our students through education and the environment that we provide. It's pretty comprehensive.
Great, and so
Are there any questions?
So this is the first read of this, so we will take this home and consider it and be ready to.
So we'll bring it back up at the March meeting and we can discuss it further or approve it then.
Okay, thank you.
sounds good. And then the goal, we're waiting on some feedback from Eddie Vance on the school lunch charging policy. And then Janet, if you want to pick up with the parent involvement policy, and John and I have split up attendance truancy and non-discrimination for our April subcommittee meeting. We'll look at those and bring those to the April for first read at the full meeting.
Okay, perfect.
That's what the next policy.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, communications. Janet, did you want to discuss we had talked in the past about sending out a survey to ask.
Yeah,
stakeholders?
so really quick, I'm working on putting a little thing together of the simple questions that we went over last time of, where we plan to see the school, what parents would like as an end goal as far as our administration and what they would like to see from the Board of Ed to hopefully be able to have you guys take a look at it and possibly approve to have sent out. Sorry, I can't turn on my camera here. And kind of go from there. So I'm working on that little like spreadsheet for that. Also, I think, like I had mentioned to you, I had met with Ryan at the Berkshire about possibly selling Botel gear as part of fundraising and communication and getting the school kind of more out into the community. And he did like approve us to have like one little section of his glass storefront there to sell Botel gear in that area as far as like shirts and like the bags and stuff that we were talking about. But that's really it. But I'm working on that spreadsheet for the questionnaire that hopefully we could submit or send out at the beginning of the school year to parents and stuff.
So beginning of the 2023-24.
Yeah, I think that's like a reasonable goal.
Okay.
It will be no more than like maybe 10 kind of questions. And like I said, we could address one at each meeting, or even if all 10 don't come back, like if there's like one particular popular one that people or parents want an answer to, we can go from there.
Thank you. Let's see. Was there anything else?
No, I think we were going to follow up at some point about who was going to do the or where to get the merchandise and stuff.
Yes.
But
Another
that,
thing,
yeah.
I would love to figure out a way to have regular social media communication. Just something to put on our radar and talk about next time to how we can get that funded or set up or something like that. I think that's something that's might be worthwhile to talk about as a group.
Social media funding for what? I'm sorry.
No, I just to have our social media platforms more used more. That's what I think. Anyway, okay. Thank you. Then on to affiliations, liaison reporting, health and wellness. We've got, did you guys meet?
We did meet this morning. I did take notes because it was a small gathering this morning, but I can share with you the conversation. We had a COVID update. Currently, there's one case in our school community. It's been very, very low numbers of COVID. We've been not seeing a huge trend or any uptick after the holidays, which we're very grateful for. And the other influenza type things have been pretty quiet too. We had a little bit of bump a month or so ago, but attendance has been good. Kids have been pretty healthy. These test kits that the state provided have pretty much expired, and we are currently looking for some affordable way to have some on hand in the event that we need them or families need them and can't get them anywhere else. They're quite pricey, so we haven't made that investment yet. It's not something that would be under our regular health budget, but
I will say Keandra is very good at directing you how to get free tests.
yes, and
she did right.
Keandra has reached a dead end. Kathy's reached a dead end. I checked in with Torrington Health District today, and they said, no, we've got.
No, I mean, as a family, she directed us, and
Oh,
she
yes.
put on her
Oh,
webpage.
yes. And
where to
I
get those
believe that
things.
family insurance, or the government will give families up to 8 a month free. So we'll get that information out to families, but we thought it would be a good idea to have some on hand. And if we can, we will get those. I mentioned to you that Ed Advance had gotten this incredible grant, and the plan to bring on 0.5 social worker at no expense to us. Their ETA is somewhere around May. They're hoping that they will do the recruiting and the hiring between now and May, that we will be involved in the hiring of the person that would actually come to Botel, and that they would spend the month of May here getting acclimated. Then they would participate in professional development so at advance over the summer and be able to hit the ground running here in the fall when we resume school. It's very clear that they are not to supplant anything that's going on here. It would be in addition to. So there are very clear boundaries as to what they can and can't do, and anything that they do must be directly related to student mental health. So that's a very exciting addition to look forward to. Brooker Memorial is going to be here again this spring and do the dental program for us. And of course, Keandra will provide all the communication to families, as well as the annual vision and hearing and scoliosis screening that it takes place in the spring. The puberty lessons that are required every year for grades 5 or 6. We are now she's going to do them only every other year because our multi-ages one group won't have to happen every year. And again, some of you may be familiar with the information that goes home. Parents can opt out of that. They can view the video beforehand with their child, so it's very transparent, but she's got that on her radar. It won't be this year because the kids had it last year, so it'll be next year. She will resume that. And then we talked a little bit about attendance letters. And as you know, we're required by law after 10 days of absence, we must notify the state, and it becomes an instance of chronic absenteeism. The question was brought up this morning, well, what do we do if kids are still out? And my stance has been, if kids are out and we know that they are really sick and we're getting doctor's excuses and we have no reason to suspect that there's neglect or any abuse or any reason, then we don't need to take further action. And should there be any suspicion or need, we would follow that protocol. But to continue to send letters home to parents who we know are doing their best to get their kids to school here. The kids haven't been here for very legitimate reasons. We have to send that first letter, but there's no reason to continue to send those letters.
Is that after 10 consecutive days?
No.
10 random days?
10, yeah, over the course of the year.
Unexcused or excused?
Well, it's
Doesn't
a
matter.
combination. Once they hit, that 10th day of absence, whether they're excused or unexcused, we're required to send that letter home and notify the parent that your child has missed this many days, and we're just required to send that home. And then when we fill out our annual report, that's part of our strategic school profile. Chronic absenteeism is, we get points or we lose points for that depending on.
This isn't a new policy. That's been like that. It's been like that. I've gotten those letters last time. So you.
So that was it for health and wellness.
Okay, thank you. Shared services, Janet.
I have nothing for shared services. We had a problem with the Zoom link that they had. So nothing to report there. But I did want to touch on something for the health and wellness. Health insurances will cover the cost of most COVID tests under most private insurance practices. I think if you just go to the pharmacy and run it through your insurance, it's at a no cost per family.
Great, that's great. Yeah, and I know. I do know that the nurse made some adjustments to her webpage that specifically talk about how to get COVID tests, and I have to look to see if she has that information up, but maybe that's something we can add there too, a little extra piece. People know. Okay, PTO. Since Ginger isn't here, I will let you all know that on February 17th, you all need to come to the 6th grade spaghetti dinner, which is from 5:30 or available 5:30 to 7:30. It will also be that specifically the spaghetti dinner benefits the 6th grade in their funding for their trip, but it will also be held in conjunction with a game night which the PTO will support. The PTO also has going on the school play right now, and that is a good one to mark on your calendars as well. That is March 31st. Also on the calendars, busy calendar, March 3rd will be karaoke nights for 6th grade. So we've got quite a few kind of fundraisers going on, and the reason I mention it here under PTO is that the fundraising through the 6th grade kind of is channeled through the PTO as well. So it's kind of all one mix. There is quite a lot of, I will be leaving the PTO this year. Sarah Feaster will be leaving the PTO. There'll be several members, several 6th grade parents will be moving on from the PTO this year. So there's a lot of opening at the PTO for people to participate and to kind of make the PTO whatever they want it to be, to make it their own and to make it great. I think that the PTO has a really, I mean, you guys all know, I think this already, but I really do believe that it has a very big impact on the school, and that it really significantly influences the kids' experience and their kind of joy and their enrichment that they get here. So I really encourage anybody listening or every parent to become involved. I also can tell you that I feel like it absolutely enriched my family's whole experience through elementary school. So PTO looking for members as always, and looking for officers as well.
Members.
Yes, I'm sorry, did I just say mothers?
Oh, no.
Oh, good.
I would say mothers.
Oh, truly, yeah, absolutely true. Okay, school safety.
We have not met since our last meeting,
Oh, that's
so we'll be meeting
Second Tuesday.
next week.
And Amy is not here for Board of Finance, but is there anything, when we talked a lot about the budget, is there anything you wanted to talk about with the Board of Finance? I told you about the upcoming agenda on 14.
Yes, a reminder that we're on the agenda for the meeting on the 14th. So.
And you've already sort of talked to us about the hotel advisory group. Is there anything else you wanted to report there?
Nope.
Okay. All right, so we have nothing under unfinished business in our agenda. Under new business, we've got our discussion for the budget, which we've done. So I think we're.
We adjourn.
Is there a second? Donna, and so all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. The motion carries, and we adjourn at 6:59. Thank you very much.
Is this the first time we finish in under an hour?
We used to do it a lot. Things just went off the rails back. So, hold on a second here.